So next decade is going to define how data flows are going to reshape our economies, innovation and trust. With the DPDP Act in place, we stand at pivotal moment, but are we ready to take advantage of this? As many of you have heard, like some of us are still thinking like what to do, whether like we should wait more or we should like once rules are finally announced, then we are going to take certain actions. So on this behalf, when we are discussing this topic, 2030, the question is whether like we can really talk about the governance, whether it's the interoperability, whether it's the cross-border data sharing, or any other issues where like still a vision is required, whether we are going to take action on this or not. So Kriti, I'll start with you. So the first question itself, like as I said, like many of us are still not so prepared, but in this aspect, you know, like interoperability is something which is very critical, essence for developing our businesses and particularly with regard to DPDP Act. And when you see like GDPR and other standard privacy rules, like how you see how we are going to align in this context, in this scenario?
Sure. Thank you, Niraj. Sorry that your picture is not here, no, but you are popular enough. So everybody, that's Niraj, DPO Union Bank of India for us. And to answer the question, I think it's not just about GDPR or DPDPA or PDPA. I think we already discussed about it. There are other regulations which have been pre-existing and which have been guiding us. There have been policies. I personally have been guided by the global standards because I have a very strong team of senior people and colleagues. And this is not a me job, this is a we job. And just to digress from what you asked, I think here we are a handful of people here today, but this is such a strong camaraderie, and if at all we can help each other build this, probably under this brand or any other brand, just to ask the right question, because as I said, we are the first set of DPOs in India, so we are the pioneers and torch bearers of what we are doing, how we are perceiving things, and there are footprints which we are building. So coming back to the point, it's very important that you also see the global footprints and the standards. I have personally very closely worked with data ingestion and cross-border data transfer, so it's very important that you are aware about not just the DPDPA or the local laws, but also about the laws and standards and processes of the other country and their camaraderie with our country. That is also very important because there are data adequacy measures, privacy shields, which most of the times I think EU, US have invalidated it, but I think EU, Japan has a privacy shield which they honor, and it makes things much more easier because there is a channel which opens. So there is a lot of homework, and I always say this because I'm very pro homework. I make sure that I know my thing when I am asked the question because I have witnessed ED raids. And so interoperability is something which we cannot deny because we are all about data monetization, and that will not stop. Just to give an example, Apple sells privacy as an element or a strong feature of its product. What an irony. So we are paying for it and we are also a product. So that's how I see it. I will talk more about it as we speak. Thank you.
So great. So build on that, Mr. Bhat, I would like to know, like we are talking about also this cross-border data transfer, as even Kriti has spoken. How you see like is a compliance minefield for us, or we will be able to take advantage of, Indian companies will be able to take advantage of this?
Okay. First of all, I'd like to thank Business World for having this event, and collaboration of minds coming and sitting together and articulating things. And coming to the question of today, cross-border transfer, we are actually living in a world where cross-border is happening every day of our life. Fortunately, or you could call it unfortunately, it is not visible to the bare eyes, that's all. So we are not aware, and as they say, when you are not aware, it is bliss. Just to illustrate an example, most of you will be using ChatGPT, Perplexity, and other AI tools. Most of these tools, when it comes to a B2C approach, make it very clear in their privacy policy that whatever information you are ingesting into us, we would be taking it as a community edition and building it onto our large language models. Now, most of these data that gets ingested into these platforms would be residing on servers which are anywhere in the world. So already cross-border transfer is happening. So the obvious understanding of a cross-border transfer, the way data localization laws apply, where they say that you need to keep it in servers in India, what technically is not understood is that in an interconnected world, your data bytes move across the globe at times just to come back to your neighbor who's sitting besides you. That's how your emails travel. And no service provider is able to give you that guarantee that I'll ensure that your data does not leave the shores of your country. Having said that, because in the age of technology, it is very difficult to determine how the bit and bytes move along the data highway. And it's going to be a minefield in the future also. So most of the FTAs that we look at would start having compatibility clauses for data moving from one country to other. There needs to be a cross-border model framework of governance. Probably countries would become more rational. But as they say, data is the new oil. We all have seen wars over oil in the past. Now we'll see wars over personalization of data. And the kind of value that holding that data helps organizations to grow. NVIDIA recently became a $5 trillion company, and Apple became a $4 trillion company. All of these organizations, if you look at their core, is helping personalize your experiences by ingesting a lot of personal information. Each individual is profiled, personalized across the globe to give you an user experience which is nothing but cross-border happening, but people not being aware. And it's a nightmare. And it's going to be a nightmare moving forward as countries start enforcing more rules for data sovereignty. And there would be trade agreements which will allow data to traverse. I think that is my 2 bits into this entire thing.
Yeah, thank you so much. And in fact, that brings me to the next question. Data is new oil, and now we're talking about data monetization. Now it's a new gold rush. Now to earn it, how we can bring ethical practice? Can we really monetize it without breaking any ethics? So I need your perspective on this.
Yeah, sure. I would like to first echo, Krishna's thoughts on thanking the business world, for having us here and creating this community. And I look forward to growing this community with all the common interests together, as DPOs and data security experts. To your very specific question, every time I talk to my peers and also within my organization, there is always this fear about अब DPDPA आ रहा है और अभी हम लोग को बहुत काम बढ़ेगा हमारा, and there will be a lot of compliance work that needs to be done. And I always go back and tell them, this can be really the gold mine for you. That's what your question is. And the way it is that if a customer comes in and he or she as in a bank does not want any equity product or any insurance product, then let's not waste our time in selling that particular thing to that particular customer. Spend your energy in selling the right products, which could be loan, which could be property or whatever the customer would want. And that's where it becomes a differentiator. You are then now focusing your energy on the right thing for the customer. And more importantly, the customer also likes it because he or she then understands that this is hyper personal and I can only, I want a particular thing and therefore the bank is giving me that, that particular service. So in that way, this can be a gold mine. It's not a deterrent. I think it's a business enabler for all of us. We have to think correctly and use it correctly. I think that's what my submission, to the community would be.
Thank you. And one of the thing which is going to be enabler is data quality. So Tanmay, do you see any conflict? So a lot of KPIs around, and then we are talking about data quality. How can you handle this situation, this conflict?
So first of all, I like to thank Business World for having me here. And what I believe about data quality, data governance, data privacy, it looks like the word governing that we are after someone. So how business functions have been working, and it looks like there is some command over them. But once we try to facilitate it in a way that it is for the betterment and it is for the help, it gives a better notion. And that's the key aspect of people ownership in the framework of data governance. There can be various ways to control it. For example, I'll just share an example of Tata Sons. We have a Tata Business Excellence Group who runs a data target and operating model, and that's an assessment which every company goes through. And it becomes a very competitive kind of a scenario where everyone is running down for data governance. But then the business function has still into the position that this is not up to the mark for us. We are still running for our sales numbers. I'll share a small example. IIDI made KYC mandatory, and there was a huge cost on the ops side for it. We were not storing the KYCs properly, and if you look at the data quality of KYC, it was around 17%. And we're burning money on the existing customer coming again for renewals, coming and buying new products, and we have a great policy density and product density at our end. We established the data quality framework, and I believe earlier in panel 1 they mentioned about the completeness, validations, and they are very brief concepts individually to be set up. And we saw great benefits. And when we save money in crores, even the top management who becomes a part of the Data Governance Council motivates everyone to implement it. And then there are various functions. So I also look after customer 360. So the key aspects to dedupe your customer and then run campaigns over it needs data at the end. And for all kind of customer intelligence and digital intelligence to be built, data quality becomes a key aspect. So once the business function started realizing it and the key role of data stewardship came into act, it really worked well for us. And we gained a lot of benefits at both ends just by improving our data qualities at various aspects.
With the AI systems increasingly trained on the global data, how do we ensure fairness, accountability in these algorithms? And particularly as an account aggregator, what is your take on it?
Firstly, thanks, for inviting me here and inviting all of us. So I think if you look at it, we are talking about DPDP now, but the AA framework is already there for financial data. I'm sure some of you may already be knowing it. That went live in 2021. And, 4 years now, there are already 300 million consents that are flowing through the ecosystem that have been actually processed so far. So the use of data is already happening. Of course, this is limited to financial data and limited to institutions who are regulated under the financial sector regulators. So in terms of how data is used, I think the whole construct of the A framework is built on the consent artifact itself, which is, mainly aligned to, the organ principles as they call it. It's open, the framework is open, the consent can be revoked. It's granular because every consent is for a certain purpose. It's auditable, there is a whole trail of, who shared what data and for what purpose. Of course, there's notifications. And then, the main thing is the security is already built into it. Because end-to-end the data is encrypted, it's built on top of the public key infrastructure. So actually, if you go to see that, you know, we are already using, you know, a flavor of DPDP is already happening in our country. And, you know, obviously, this is one of, I would say in India, it's one of the, you know, leading frameworks. There are other frameworks globally, which is like GDPR or the PSD2 in the EU or the UK open banking, you know, now even Singapore has it, Middle East has it, but I think, you know, India is kind of leading in that front. We've already laid down the framework. I think DPDP will then extend it to probably other sectors and, you know, make it further.
Mr. Bhat, I'll just to add on this, how organizations are shifting from point solutions, that is cataloging policies, to the fully integrated governance across analytics, cyber, compliance, and business lines. So would you like to throw some light on this? Just.
Okay. So it's a very difficult question. So we are speaking about organizations collaborating in unison. So there's a collaboration between cyber, the data analytics team, the AI governance, AI team analytics, and the data protection. So each one of them has an individual role to play in the overall governance framework with a common agenda of risk management. So end of the day, we all are working towards the same thing: minimize risk, minimize exposures. And moving forward as things mature and evolve, right now each of these teams work in silos. So you have the chief data officer who would be working with the data of the organization, responsible for data quality, integrity, accuracy, completeness, maybe dedupe also. And then you have the analytics who is trying to derive that information, relying on the chief data officer to provide reports in a timely manner to the users in the manner that they require it, which is intelligible and digestible. Then you have the CISO or the cyber team, which ensures that this information is protected at rest in transit, and there are guardrails that ensure that things don't go haywire. To add to this, you have the data protection officer who will have to further ensure that whatever information is being collated is being catalogued, classified, personal, non-personal, classified accurately, made available, maybe masked, encrypted, not shareable. So there are so many activities that each one of these independent functions are currently doing. As things evolve and mature, there has to be an interoperability in each of these functions where we are able to build a standardized platform. As the information gets ingested into the organization, the data protection expectations in terms of consents, in terms of handling of personal data, flows through the chief data officer, so he already knows what is labeled, catalogued, and he's in a position to share it across, while the cyber team ensures that this platform is protected and information is available on need to know rather than available to everybody. I think this integration will evolve over a period of time, and right now there is no single platform or solution that helps you derive value across the entire chain of events as the data enters your organization. And each one works in a siloed, and that's the future that we can anticipate in 2030, where this global data governance, as we monetize our data, will need to have more interoperability. You need to have a data governance framework so the information can be shared across industry peers, so that the industry as a whole can also monetize and benefit from this compatibility and collaboration.
So Tanmay, you heard Mr. Bhat about all these aspects. So what level of governance maturity is required for a company to safely participate in a cross-industry data sharing consortium in 2030? So what is your take?
So let's divide it into 3 levels. One level is an ad hoc kind of a thing where we still use SFTPs and share informations, and it's less regulated. Coming to the next level, we start integrating APIs and then taking consents of the customer at the same time. why not move to the third level, aiming towards 2030, where we have AI in place and where the customer consents are taken way before when the data was collected at the point. And definitely when DPDP coming, there will be various other aspects to be covered around the consent. But I believe when ever such cross-industry data sharing is there, we should have an AI-based solutioning designed around it so that this enhances the customer experience for everyone. Just one of an example is a customer comes to your website. Why do they have to spend so much of time filling up any form? That's again a cross-industry data sharing. Being in insurance, we require data from other insurance partners as well as various other partners. DNB is one of our partners. No, they help us in dedupe of our corporate clients. So I believe it should be more advanced and aiming towards the goal that it should be on an instant basis and microseconds.
Munish, so in this context, Munish, I'll just asking to Munish. So, because, you know, like, what is going to be your version of truth? He's talking about IoT edge. So, in this fabric, and how you like collaborate with your local and regional adaptations, how you're going to align your truth?
Yeah, so I think from a global governance perspective, of course, I think the way it's going is that everyone is having their own local laws, which is obviously the case. You know, everyone is looking at data localization. Maybe, you know, there will be kind of global standards, like already ISO 27001 standard is there, which is like a now followed, you know, all, you know, all institutions have started following that. There probably would be global standard, you know, extending beyond the 27001. There are already a few standards which are there, 27701, I think someone mentioned earlier. You know, I think obviously you know, in terms of data moving from, you know, one country to another, obviously it has to go over certain policies. So I think, you know, a techno-legal, a techno-policy kind of framework, you know, probably should be there in terms of how data can move from one country to another. And of course, with these kind of security places, you know, security frameworks, you know, that should probably strengthen.
Whether you observe a trust premium from customers when you embed privacy by design into these products? If yes, how you measure your return on investment?
First of all, the answer is a big yes. I mean, there is a lot of benefits with privacy by design. Different organizations will have different connotations. You know, from a financial group, from a bank perspective, the way I see it is that, you know, the customer starts trusting more, and therefore the KPI would be to see that, you know, the same customer is coming back again and again because the trust is built. The other way to see it from a customer experience perspective is to see the net promoter score. That could be another metrics that we can measure. And from an overall business, you know, you look at the entire life cycle value of the customer. I mean, it's not just that he or she is just doing transactional business. It's an overall life cycle that gets managed better. And I always say this, even, you know, within my organization, it's a competitive advantage. It's not another compliance burden that we have. It's gonna be a strategic differentiation. Thankfully, with the 250 CR fine, I think everyone's eyes are now wide open, and, you know, they're taking it seriously. That's helpful. But more importantly, I think it's important to see it as that differentiator. That's important. And different organizations will have different KPIs for it. But from a banking perspective, you know, those are the few that I mentioned, which will help the bank to take it forward.
Yeah, thank you, Munesh. And Kriti, India has the skill, tech talent, and now this privacy law. Can we become a trusted data hub by 2030? Whether like it's only about our neighboring countries, we can become a global hub by 2030?
See, I think we can become anything we want, but the thing, see, I come from a legal compliance background. The only point is, if you're doing it, do it right. And also I have seen a lot of content on media saying that India does not innovate, India just repeats things, they just believe that they can, twist the policy and then they can, so although it's a topic for another panel, but I do feel definitely India has the potential, we have the right kind of skilled labor, we have the manpower. There is, the whole idea of brain drain has been shut down thanks to Mr. Trump. So we very much have the right kind of skilled people here. It's just the matter of opportunity, and it has to be clubbed in consonance with the right kind of sandboxing. Very important. See, we should not be the guinea pigs. And when I say we, it's the citizens. And that's the whole idea about DPDP, right? It's about trust. It's about protecting the customers, protecting the users. It's about consent. It's also that there are exemptions to it, but with the right vision, for the right intent, and that is why IT Act has been somewhere, redone in light of data protection. So absolutely, we can be what we want to, and India is a very strong nation, emotionally and financially as well, if we ensure that we are looking at the right purpose. So the best and my favorite word when I draft a policy is specific purpose, right? We have to stick to the same agenda as we move forward as Indians.
Okay, so before we move to rapid fire round, I'll just like to ask question to audience. So by 2030, which of your data practices will you think will still be relevant and which will become obsolete? So would you like to share, any of the audience members? One word that's going to define future of data governance in 2030. One.
Okay. So one word that defines data governance in 2030. So right now, I could say that we usually have organizations which say we have governance practices. Probably in the future, organizations would like to proclaim that we are a governed organization. That's it. So they are not going to say that we are an organization that has governance practices. The entire paradigm will shift to saying we are a governed organization, and it's understood that everything else is in order.
Munish.
One word that comes to my mind is dashboarding.
Accountability.
Cool. Tanmay.
Knowledge champions. We need them.
I would say data trust score.
Okay, good. And one approach to increase data knowledge in our organization. What could be? Yeah, you can start from that side.
More awareness, more awareness sessions.
I believe DPOs and CDOs becoming champions and not the complainers.
Alignment.
Okay.
Over the last 2 months, since the time I've been working with the bank, it's been education, education, education. I think that's what it'll be.
I think awareness should start from the top and driven down.
So I think it's finally time to close. So what we have heard so far, it's not about only compliance. So of course, this data privacy is going to be reason for our competitive advantage, and how like any organization is going to use it, whether we are going to compete on trust. And in fact, the opening remark, so it was mentioned like trust is currency. So business must make consent. So massive thanks to our panelists and all of you, our esteemed audience. Thank you so much. Thank you for this panel discussion.